Most people think funerals are for the dead. They're not. If you've ever left a funeral feeling emotionally different, heavier, clearer, or strangely motivated, this explains why. In psychology and nursing science, this reaction has a name and a pattern. By the end of this video, you will understand how funerals psychologically reset the living, and why ignoring this process can lead to complicated grief. So, what does funeral theory actually mean? It isn't a single textbook label. The structure of the ritual itself, the gathering, the words, the shared experience gives our minds something concrete to hold on to when everything else feels like it's falling apart. From a psychological standpoint, death creates what's known as cognitive dissonance. Funerals act as a powerful transition ritual, what psychologists often call a liminal space. This is a sacred, in-between place where the mind begins to do three critical things. First, it accepts the reality of the loss. Second, it starts to reorganize its attachment to the person who has died. And third, it begins the long process of emotional separation. Without this deliberate, structured transition, grief can become frozen. The mind remains in a state of suspended disbelief, unable to move forward because it hasn't been given a clear signal that the world has permanently changed. A funeral is that signal. Let's talk about why viewing the body matters. This isn't about morbidity or some morbid curiosity, it is about finality. In both nursing and trauma psychology, visual confirmation is a powerful tool. It accomplishes several key things. It drastically reduces denial, making the loss real and tangible. It can prevent the mind from creating intrusive fantasies or what-if scenarios about the person still being alive somewhere. This is why sudden deaths where a viewing isn't possible often produce much more complicated grief reactions, like recurring nightmares, prolonged shock, and significantly delayed grief responses. The brain, in its quest for certainty, needs closure. Now for the social function that most people completely miss. The close encounter with death acts as a profound reorganizing force for the living. It strips away the trivial and forces us to confront the big questions. Am I living the life I want to live? What truly matters to me? This existential jolt, while sometimes causing anxiety, is often a catalyst for positive, meaningful change. Death reorganizes the living. But it's important to understand that funerals don't always heal. They can fail psychologically under certain conditions. This happens when emotions are suppressed, when people are told to be strong and not to cry. It happens when cultural rituals are rushed or seen as a mere formality to get through. And it happens when a mourner's grief is invalidated or ignored. In nursing practice, we see these individuals present later on with a host of other issues: anxiety disorders, chronic depression, and even physical or somatic symptoms like unexplained pain or fatigue. Unexpressed grief does not disappear. It simply relocates, embedding itself in the body and mind, waiting to emerge in other, often more destructive, ways. A funeral is only as effective as the emotional permission it grants. So, what does all of this mean for you? If you are grieving right now, remember these 3 things: ritual matters, expression matters, and time matters. Allow yourself to participate in the rituals, to feel your emotions without judgment, and to give yourself the time you need. And if you are supporting someone who is grieving, understand that your presence is far more powerful than any advice you could give. They are about receiving permission from yourself and your community to begin the difficult but necessary work of grieving properly. If this video helped you understand grief a little differently, then you need to watch this next one because it explains exactly why that unresolved grief so often shows up as chronic anxiety and burnout years down the line. Thanks for watching.